Okay, welcome to See It and Feel It with Dr. Brett. And I'm Dr. Brett, and today I'm here with Ryan Davy, a good friend and also an interesting guy with a background as a tennis teacher, tennis instructor, also a therapist, which is interesting. And now he's turned himself into a financial planner and an insurance sales guy. So you've done a lot in the last, 3 or 4 years since we've met. What's the most fun part, and how'd you manage all those transitions, Ryan?
Absolutely, Dr. Brett. I appreciate that introduction. I would say it's a combination of everything. I like where the journey's taken me. You know, educationally through psychology, the um, helping fields. Through therapy. I enjoyed my
Yeah.
time. Going through grad school and that experience. And I'd say the most fun is probably coaching tennis. You know,
Coaching tennis is the most fun. So how has coaching tennis, helped you, or influenced you as a financial planner and as you transitioned into, a sales role? Tell me what's overlapped as a teacher, as an instructor with your
sure,
current job, and then maybe blend in what being a therapist meant then, today, and in your future here.
absolutely. And I was thinking about this, prior to our conversation today. I think the blend was you know, just caring about my clients, whether it's in a therapy session, whether it's on a tennis court, whether it's in, one of our meetings in the office, just having an ability to connect with one of our clients, one of our patients. I think it's just giving a recommendation, being able to assess a situation, whether that's their current state of behavioral health and what's best for them, with the behavioral
Hmm.
plan, or it's a financial plan. So I think it's the similar level of assessment, but just a different lens
Hmm.
for me, at least. So the transition from being a mental health professional, a therapist, to a financial advisor was pretty seamless, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And being able to connect with our clients, and then to our financial clients, has been the easiest part for me.
Yeah, so the background, the connecting part, establishing a relationship part, as a therapist, right, that's a huge part of the experience is you got to connect with your clients and then you use the relationship as
Hmm.
a way of influencing them on their journey in a positive way, in so many positive ways, right?
Absolutely.
But what about as an tennis instructor? Is that similar? You're doing something similar. You're connecting first, then
Yeah.
you're teaching, right? And as a
Absolutely.
financial planner, again, you're doing the connecting piece
Mhm.
first, because without the connection, why should anybody trust you or buy from you or whatever from you, right?
Exactly. And what I say now in my business as a financial advisor is, I'm in the long-term relationship building business. I'm not looking
Mm,
to sell a small product, come to your house, sell something over the phone. Very transactional that other agents build a business like that. My ideas and from what I've learned from my mentors is, I want to meet the family. I want to understand the family dynamic, which comes the psychology, background, get a sense of the family situation, and from there, when I understand who they are and what their goals are, we can, you know, hopefully build a long-term relationship. And that goes
yeah.
with my tennis clients that I've had for several years, even a decade.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. It's something I've talked about a lot over the years. You know that. I'm not a fan of transactional relationships. I don't even do it with a plumber or electrician. I take some kind of,
Sure.
even if it's just a tiny genuine interest, I'm taking a genuine interest in pretty much everybody I meet. I think it's a better way. Even the waitress at the table, it's like she's a human being. I look her in the eye, or he's a human being. I look them in the eye and I acknowledge their presence. I try to, it's just a way of living and a way of being. That said, how do you handle, the myriad of beings that you meet that, relate to you transactionally? Because a lot of people, they just
Sure.
don't, they don't see it that way. It's not a relationship for
Mhm.
them. It's simply a transaction to get something done. So how
Uh,
do you handle that?
No, that's a great question, Dr. Brett. And I think that comes in time with having a strong kind of radar, and that could be a tennis client that only wants to commit once a month, and the session's over. Have a nice weekend, Ryan. We don't say anything. And that could be a financial client who says, "Hey, I'm looking for life insurance policy, whatever it is," and it can be handled in 15 minutes. I mean, I speak to him or her for another year. Compared to a client that I've gone to their house several times, had several follow-ups with, and know their family and business situation a little more in depth. So I think it comes from experience, and early on, being able to ask the client specifically, what are your goals? What are you looking for out of this relationship? And being very sometimes blunt and clear about it lets the client coming back to therapy, you know, client and patient centered treatment. The client or the patient is the expert, and let them guide. You know,
Now,
what they
have you been transactional in your background, Ryan, or have you made a transition, or were you always more the other way? What's been your path?
I'd say probably similar to yourself. I've have a pretty long history of long term relationships with friends and family. Um, even some uncles and aunts that you would think would just be you'd see a couple times a year. Merry Christmas. I've had some really deep relationships with some of my older family members, and connected to them to where a lot of younger cousins and nephews may not have. So
Hmm.
certainly someone who isn't tries to relate to all my friends and family and try to connect on a deeper level.
Yeah, I love it. So tell us about the transition, into sales, because that's not always
Yeah.
easy. There's a lot of rejection involved. I
Mhm.
often compare it to dating, right? And I
Correct.
know that you overcame that one. I don't know if you're half Italian or entirely, but it's like you just kind of got that one. You're over that one, So
Yeah.
how did you make that? I'm being playful around
Sounds
ethnicity,
correct.
right? I don't know
Yeah.
if some people get offended by that, but I'm just being playful.
I like to
But
compare a lot of
anyway,
things. I mean,
what's that?
I like to compare dating to like interviewing.
Yeah, exactly.
When I'm 22 out of college, we all think we're hot or whatever, but my interviewing skills
Well,
weren't
you're
great.
pond scum too at 22, 23, right? It's like
Most of
I
us don't
lived in
know
New York
that.
City, right? And we were at the bottom of the food chain in New York.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
but anyway, go ahead.
the
So,
confidence on a first round interview or you're a young adult, you don't have the experience and you don't really believe in yourself. The same for a first date when you're younger. I feel like again, confidence comes in time. So I like to say a first interview, a first date's easy for me now.
right.
That's in the past, and
And what about the rejection involved? How have you handled that? And, have you gotten a lot better at it, or you always sort of, it's
sure.
something you've been
I mean,
reasonably decent at?
yeah. I mean, if you're passionate about your business, it's never going to be nice. It's never going to feel good to have a prospective client or patient, say something poorly about your business, your company, or about you reaching out. But I think in that sense, you have to have a short memory and go on to the next situation, the next opportunity.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
if you miss the 3-foot putt, you don't want to be thinking about that on the next tee box, right? You just got
exactly.
to move on from that.
Yeah.
And in tennis, I would imagine it's similar, right? I mean, I've played enough tennis in my lifetime. You
Mm.
don't want to be focused on any of the previous shots, right? You're back in the moment and back in the moment. How are you doing with that, like present moment time?
Um, it's still something I'm working on. I mean, it's been your life.
That's a lifelong
Yeah,
journey,
it's
right?
been your lifelong journey. It's something you've committed decades to, and it's mindfulness and being in the present, whether that's in a client meeting, whether that's in a on a date with a relationship, whether that's sitting down with a family member,
Yeah.
not on your phone, being in the moment. I'm working on it. It's something I'm
Yeah,
conscious
because
about.
I often say that, when people ask me questions around, how to interview and stuff, and I'm like, primary thing is the same thing with dating. It's like to show up present and engaged. That's primary. So you're
Mhm.
actually like, as a financial planner, if you're a really good listener, that's going to have a huge impact because now you're really understanding your client's needs. And
Mhm.
being a really good listener, for the most part, means you're not listening to you, right? You're listening to them. You're not listening to that little voice in your head unless it's intuitive. What you're
True.
really doing is emptying your mind for the most part and asking questions, being curious and listening to them.
Mhm.
You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you curious about, just out of curiosity?
I'm curious. Have what's been going on with you in your world, with your business? I'm thinking about everything with COVID. Businesses have been suffering. I see a lot of pressure on young adults. Have you seen an increase in
Well, I was
overall kind of
very, yeah, it's a really good question. I was very worried, not so much about myself, because, I've been running remote, in and out of Connecticut for a long, long time, right? It's like I fly back in, I spend a lot of time there, 9-day trips and so on. But I've been set up for this kind of experience for more than a decade. So I've been fluid and flexible. I was able to run a business from China and Thailand. So for me personally, the experience of COVID in some respects made it easier because the 1 out of 3 people that needed to see you in person no longer had that excuse, right?
Absolutely.
Because for a long time I was able to say to people, look, you know what I mean? If I get behind you, you're going to win. Or if I get behind your son or daughter, they're going to win, because I have a lot of confidence in what I do. And I've been really
Right.
good at it for a long time. And it's really been, true. It's just some people feel like they have to see you in person. And look, I love the in person thing. And when I come back, I do see everybody in person. But so for me, COVID just in some ways made the business easier. But also, one of the things I talked about in March and April that I was very worried about was shutdowns and so on. I'm now worried about again is the increased levels of anxiety and depression and substance abuse and,
Mhm.
violence and things like that that are, prevalent when you have more pressure,
So
more economic pressure, more pressure on the system. And we are seeing more and more of that. And so
mhm.
that's why I think policy needs to be more understanding of the sort of mental health aspects of things like lockdowns and restrictions and shutdowns, because too many people are suffering. And that's not, mental health is not, even though we talk about it in a way that is, sort of like, it's a little more enlightened than it was in the
Yeah.
past, it's still not prevalent. People get really scared around, the virus and so on. And there's other pictures besides just the virus, right? If
Yeah.
you're not elderly or immune compromised, there's a bigger picture, right? There's like your, health and welfare, emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, right? And the welfare of your community as well,
And
right?
our sense of communion and everything, and we forget, when that's challenged and when it's not strengthened, how much that affects us. And when I was spending days and weeks inside working from home, not getting sunlight, not getting really any, interaction with any other humans rather, I started to feel that seasonal depression type,
Absolutely.
come over,
Yeah.
and my energy was impaired, my focus, my concentration. I, put on a few pounds, and it just hit
Yeah.
me. I'm not drinking enough water. My activity is too low. So as soon as I
Mhm.
changed my diet and my activity, it was like, a couple hours later, I felt better. My energy level was higher again, and I just
Yeah.
feel like, mental health. The second word is health. It's so
Yeah.
imperative. It's so imperative.
Totally.
So imperative to our overall health, that the
And
mental.
so is the
You know,
interactions with people. I've been like concerned about, things like wearing masks outside where there's almost no evidence of outside transmission. And the metaphor is that, look, people need to have social interaction. Okay, we're 6 feet away. I understand the inside situation, but outside, it seems like we need to have, you know, human beings need the social contact. It's really important for who we are, for our health,
Mhm.
our well being, our immune systems. There hasn't been enough talk in my from my perspective about immunity and our immune systems and how much love and human interactions
Mhm.
matter in terms of our immunity, right?
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, as you know, the choices we make, right? When we're eating healthier, we're exercising, and we're doing things like meditating, versus what happens with a lot of people when they're under more pressure is they do more drugs and alcohol and more
Right.
Doritos, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Of
And
course.
that's also happened. There's, like higher instances, since this thing began, of substance abuse and so on. And, and I think we'll find that suicides are higher, and, crime we already know is way up. So we have to sort of balance, public health and well-being with the mental health and emotional health and spiritual health and well-being. And I'm not sure that that's been, fully
So,
balanced in this
yeah.
process, right?
Yeah.
Because you went through it, right? It's like you've
Absolutely.
started to feel really isolated. Well, you're equipped, Ryan, to handle that isolation,
Yeah.
right? Because you have, techniques and strategies that
Yeah.
you've worked with clients for years on.
Mhm.
Not everybody is that equipped, right?
Yeah.
Literally,
And
we're in Florida, and I ran into a guy the other day who, just got out of Brooklyn, and he moved down here because he said the crime and the gangs in his neighborhood were out of bounds and out of control.
that's what I'm thinking
So
about. That person that's in that 800 square foot apartment in Brooklyn or New York City who said, "Hey, I don't mind sucking it up, having this little place. I can go out and walk the park during the day. I love the city and the energy, but now I'm stuck here, 22 hours a day." It's, completely changed. So people are
yeah,
saying,
it's not good for your immune system either. It's unhealthy. When you're depressed, as you know, it affects your immunity.
"Would you?"
And, a lot of this thing is also related to our immune system, not just the spread of COVID, which is, Obviously it's a coronavirus, which is a flu is also a coronavirus. In other words, our immunity is affected by
Mhm.
our level of happiness and our level of well-being. There's been, decades and decades of research on that.
You think
So